And let's bring in Alfie Stirling, who's Director of Research and Chief Economist at the New Economics Foundation. Alfie, good evening.
Good evening.
Do you agree, first of all, with this very bleak forecast then, post-furlough?
The forecasts don't look good at all, unfortunately. I mean, obviously at this stage, there's a lot of uncertainty in all of this. And an economic forecast at the end of the day is just we don't know what exactly will pan out, but that about 20% of hours in the labour market were lost in May to June, and that the reason why that didn't bite in terms of unemployment at the time was because of the furlough scheme. It meant although people weren't working, they hadn't lost their job. Now, if that translates into something similar in terms of unemployment once the scheme unwinds from October onwards, we've got a range of possible impacts to unemployment, ranging from an extra 1 million or 1.5 million unemployed, so a doubling of the unemployment numbers, right up to perhaps 2.5 or 4 million in total unemployed by Christmas. So these are really quite bleak forecasts if they end up being accurate.
Some people are objecting to the state constantly subsidising. Does it possibly save money in the long term then?
It does, actually. So there's been quite a lot of detailed modelling to look at, the cost benefit of both paying companies to make sure people are kept in their job, and so those people then have income they can go out and spend in the shops for services, which comes back in tax receipts, but also creates jobs elsewhere in the economy or protects jobs elsewhere because they're going for their haircuts, they're going to the supermarkets. And what that work has found is that in the long run, over a 12-month period, actually a furlough scheme like the kind of scheme that the UK has had does pay for itself in the current economic climate. But more importantly is that human social cost that it avoids in terms of the misery, the poverty of unemployment.
What do you think Rishi Sunak will actually do? Is there any chance that he'll come up with another scheme?
I think there is a possibility that Rishi Sunak will listen to the calls, such as by Trade Union Congress, by other organisations as well, including New Economics Foundation, where I work, Resolution Foundation, and we'll realise that essentially policy on jobs and policy on the labour market needs to follow two things. It first needs to mirror the pandemic. It can't operate in a vacuum. If there's still a risk that we will have a pandemic present in society by October, there needs to be support in place to protect the people and the jobs that might be lost. And at the moment, it looks very likely we'll still have a pandemic in society. The next thing that needs to follow is job creation. There is no point government stepping back in job protection and ensuring that people have incomes through the furlough scheme if it isn't at the same time ensuring there are new jobs for them to go to. So I think that it's those two things together, monitoring the pandemic, making sure we're reciprocating and mirroring where the public health crisis is at, but also not withdrawing support before there are new jobs created.